Hello my amazing people, and welcome back to my channel. If you're back, long time no see. If you are new though, hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Shayna and I have another case for you all today. Today we're going to be talking about the passing of Zion Foster. She was a 17-year-old girl from Detroit, Michigan. I know that not everybody makes it to the end of the video, so I do want to put in the beginning here that there is going to be a resource in the description box below for how you can directly impact and help in the current ongoing search for Zion. Her remains have not been found up until this point. So in case you have to leave us early, still be sure to check out that link. There are monetary donations being accepted right now to help aid in the search for Zion Foster's remains. So I did want to put that in the beginning in case, again, you don't make it all the way to the end with me today. I'm hoping to help in any way that I can as far as the search goes for Zion, but I also just want people to know who she was. There hasn't been a lot of content creators that have covered the story. There's been a lot of news outlets covering it, and there's been talk, I believe, on TikTok. I think I saw some TikToks about it, but as far as on this platform, I haven't seen a lot of coverage. So it was very important to me that when I saw this recommended to me in my case request form, I take a look into it and follow up to actually cover it. So this one is a hard one. She was only 17 years old, absolutely beautiful girl, and I just want to make sure that people remember her. Before we jump into the video, just want to give my usual disclaimer that this is all information that I have found online and compiled into a video for educational purposes. Thank you so very much for stopping by my channel to hang out with me today, and let's go ahead and get started. Zion Foster was a beautiful girl living in the East Point area of Detroit and Michigan at the time of this case. She was born to her parents, James Royster and Sierra Milton, and she was 17 years old. She had actually just had a birthday in November, and life was getting super exciting for her because she had a ton of milestones coming up, such as getting her first driver's license, buying her prom dress, and taking high school graduation photos. Being a girl with a lot of ambition and drive, she knew that she had a wonderful life ahead of her. She was just getting started, and her parents knew that she had a big future too. Zion and her mom were very close. They had a great relationship. Sierra trusted Zion, and they had a very transparent kind of dynamic between the two of them. It was common for Zion to share her location with her mom whenever she left the house and stay in consistent communication whenever she wanted to go places and do things. As the oldest of her siblings, she had 5 siblings. They really looked up to her and they admired her for her role that she played in the family. She was an incredibly responsible girl. A couple of Zion's many talents included playing the drums, playing the flute as well, which from what I was able to find, she had spent years improving at, and she also loved to dance and sing. In her free time, she enjoyed playing video games and board games, and of course, being a very present and attentive big sister, with one of her siblings at the time being less than a year old. She had good relationships with extended family as well, and there was one family member in particular that she especially took a liking to, one of her cousins, a 23-year-old named Jalen Brazier. She had Jalen's name saved in her phone as Favo to represent him being her absolute favorite cousin. And because of the relationship that Jalen had with Zion as well as the rest of the family, he was seen as someone who could be trusted. He was engaged to be married with 2 children and 1 on the way, and he lived with his family on the west side of Detroit. Since he had this good relationship with the family, when Zion asked Sierra if she could go hang out with Jalen on January 4th of this year, Sierra thought about it and she actually figured, why not? She had no reason not to trust Jalen, and she let Zion know that she could go as long as she shared her location for the entire time and stayed in contact with her. Zion agreed before leaving the house that evening and also was sure to send her mom a text before she was headed back home. Sierra was watching her location and could see that Zion was pinged at Jalen's house, but after receiving the text that Zion was on her way home, Sierra realized that she couldn't get through to her anymore and that her phone location had suddenly become unavailable, making it clear that her phone was turned off. So of course, Sierra waited, but Zion would never show. That next morning, when Zion still hadn't returned home, Sierra was in a panic, not knowing what to do. And as she's trying to figure out what move to make, she actually received an incoming call from none other than Jalen. During this unprompted phone call, Jalen explained to Sierra that he had no idea where Zion was. He said he actually hadn't seen her in years, and that Zion must have just used his name as a way of lying to go somewhere else without her mom's knowledge. And this phone call was really weird and suspicious for a couple reasons. Number one, Jalen called Sierra. So how did he know that there was currently a panic happening about Zion being missing? That was number one. And number two, Sierra saw Zion's phone pinged at Jalen's house. So she knew that Zion was at least in the area, and she's trying to figure out how this could be if Jalen claimed that he had never seen her at all. So she's asking him some questions, and he's insisting like, yeah, no, I haven't seen Zion in years. I don't know what's going on or where she could be. And Sierra's antennas start to go up. She's like, this isn't feeling right. And she remembers actually a time in recent months that Jalen was at the house with the family and Zion was there. So she remembered a specific instance of him having seen Zion, and she's starting to realize that maybe he's not being 100% truthful. And as he's presented with this information, like a reminder, like, no, you saw Zion recently, he starts to change his story. And he goes from saying that he saw her a few years ago to some months ago. As you can imagine, after this exchange, Sierra was feeling uneasy and really not sure if she should take Jalen's words at face value. But knowing that she still had to continue to try to figure out where Zion was, if he was claiming that she wasn't with him, she begins calling around. And Zion's boyfriend hadn't heard from her, and her best friend also hadn't heard from her since the night before, and neither one of them had any idea where she could possibly be on that day. All the while, I want to add in that Zion's phone was still going to voicemail and her location was still unavailable. Sierra decides that the best thing to do is to contact the East Point Police Department to let them know about Zion being missing and to hopefully get a missing persons report filed. And when she corresponds with them, she gives them all the information, and she's kind of surprised by the fact that they only really want to take down Zion's name, her address, and her date of birth. They didn't seem interested in a photo. They didn't actually take an official report. And that was puzzling to Sierra, of course, because how is anyone going to follow up or know what Zion even looks like if there's no photo given to the police? You know what I mean? And she realizes it might be a bit of an uphill battle with the police when she was told that it could take up to 72 entire hours for a detective to be assigned to Zion's disappearance. So she was upset, frustrated, but ultimately realizing that she had to take matters into her own hands. Getting this nagging feeling that something was off about Jalen's story, Sierra felt the need to follow up. She knew that Zion wasn't one to lie about who she was with, where she was going. She knew that Zion, she would have at least called her mom or texted her mom. So Sierra actually was able to get her hands on CCTV footage. For the record, I personally am not sure if this was CCTV in front of their house or if this was from a neighbor's house. But nevertheless, she was able to get her hands on CCTV footage from the night of January 4th and see the exact time that Zion left the house. On this footage, it is clear as can be that Zion hops into a white car with dark tinted windows, a car that Sierra recognized to belong to Jalen Brazier. What's interesting though is on the footage, the car is seen pulling into a neighbor's driveway rather than into the driveway of Zion's house. This almost seemed like an effort to avoid being seen by whoever was driving this car. It seemed like maybe they didn't want anyone in Zion's house to see the car or maybe a camera to catch the car. They were just moving in a really weird, inconspicuous kind of way. Sierra provided the CCTV footage to police, and she knew that since the footage showed Zion leaving with Jalen, and since her last location was at Jalen's house, like Sierra just knew that she had to go over there and check for herself. So for the next few days, she's going back and forth to Jalen's house to look around to see if there's any sign of Zion, to talk to people. But there was absolutely no sign of Zion anywhere. Family members as well as people from the community would come out at this time to help Zion's parents post flyers around the neighborhood, spread the word about Zion, and also conduct searches themselves. Among the family members that would come out to help was none other than Jalen, who continued to insist that he hadn't seen Zion in months. Zion's parents, of course, were thankful for the help from the community, but they grew increasingly frustrated with the lack of police help during the first few days. Police were straightforward with the family when they told them that this case was actually being viewed in the initial days as a runaway and that it was being treated as such. This, of course, was frustrating for those who knew that Zion was not the type of girl to run away from home. She was a family girl. She loved her siblings, and it was completely out of character for her to just poof and disappear without so much as a text message or a call. But after that first week, East Point Police Department and Detroit Police Department began an investigation into her disappearance. Utilizing the CCTV from January 4th, they actually decided to take Jalen's car in for evidence and question him on January 10th. During this initial questioning, he denied having seen Zion at all, insisting to them that it had been months since he last saw his cousin. They take down his statement and continue to investigate. Police were able to get their hands on phone records, which provided them some information that proved that Jalen and Zion had been in correspondence in the days before she disappeared. And they knew that they had to follow up with him after this finding to present it to him and say, hey, we approve that you guys have been talking back and forth. And he actually maintained a story that he hadn't seen Zion in months. And he was specific when he said that he hadn't seen her since May, which would be an entire 8 months before she disappeared. Knowing that they didn't have enough evidence to hold him in custody, police let him know that he's free to go. But they say, hey, how about we consider doing a polygraph test? And Jalen actually agrees to it. And he says, yeah, that's fine. He wants to maintain his innocence. But when the day would come for the actual polygraph to take place, he was completely MIA. Jalen was announced as an official person of interest on January 19th, about 2 weeks after Zion was last seen. After this announcement, Jalen would actually turn himself in to the police on his own, where he would be subject to further questioning. After trying to continue with his lies, police finally get Jalen to a point where he begins to provide some information. They had him on camera picking Zion up that night. They had her last location being at his house. They had the phone records that proved that the two of them had been in touch. They had a ton to work with to try and get some sort of confession out of him. Jalen would tell police that he was, in fact, with Zion that night. He said that he went to pick her up and the two of them went back to his house where they planned to smoke weed and hang out for a bit until Zion had to go back home. He says that while the two of them were smoking, everything was fine. Everything was going well. And at some point he gets up and walks out of the room. When he comes back though, he notices that Zion was allegedly laying there passed out. He got closer to her and was able to see that she allegedly was faintly breathing. And instead of calling 911 or calling to a family member who was in the house for help, he panics and he decides in his panic that he has to dispose of her remains. This, again, I want to put emphasis, is the story that he's now telling police. This is his confession of sorts. And when he decides that he has to dispose of her remains, he takes her body and he puts her in the trunk of his car. He then drives her to a nearby dumpster where he puts her body without a coat in the freezing cold in the middle of January, in the middle of the night. He told police that in that moment, all he could think about was that if he actually called 911, he would be accused of murdering her, of taking her life when he didn't actually do it. He also said he had these thoughts about his children and his unborn baby and his future and wanting to be there for his fiance and his kids, and that if he was wrongly accused of hurting Zion, he wouldn't be able to be there for his family. According to him, this is what he was thinking. So instead of calling for help, he decided to get rid of her body on his own. Police get the information for the location of this dumpster, the specific dumpster that Jalen was claiming he put Zion's remains in. And they know that with this information, they can hopefully begin to search for Zion. As for Jalen, he would be charged with lying to police on January 24th, and he was sent to the Michigan Department of Corrections. He was subsequently found guilty and sentenced to up to 4 years in prison. And I believe his sentence is 2 to 4 years, so it could potentially be shorter. This is simply for lying to the police. Since police had the exact location of this dumpster, they knew that they could trace it back to a specific landfill because by this point, the dumpster had been emptied out. The trash had been taken by this point, I'm assuming at least a couple times, because at this point, we're mid to late January when she went missing in the beginning of January. Police would be led to Pine Tree Acres Landfill, which is a landfill in Lenox Township, and they worked with Waste Management directly, who agreed to identify the approximate location that trash from this dumpster was most likely to end up in the landfill. After this location was identified, it was blocked off and no further trash was dumped there. But by this point, there would have already been 75 to 100 feet of compacted trash dumped on top of wherever Zion's body was likely to be, if she was in fact placed in that dumpster, like Jalen said she was. Months started to go by, and this pained Zion's family to no end. They had no idea if she would ever be found, if her body would be intact when it was found. They had so many questions, and they at this point weren't even sure if the landfill would be searched. They had to grapple with the fact that their family member disposed of Zion in such a careless kind of way, a very heartless kind of way, and on top of that, Sierra was receiving all types of harassment from people reaching out and also people claiming that they had seen Zion in places where we know she couldn't have been. Sierra just being sent on a goose chase, trying to make her best efforts to find Zion and ultimately being taken advantage of. People were trying to scam her out of money. People were saying that they believe that Zion was sold into sex. It was just a big mess and an extremely emotional time, as I'm sure you can imagine. Zion's siblings had to learn how to do life without their big sister, and they had to process that someone so close to them could do something so evil. There were also many questions about the motive of all of this. Was Jalen telling the complete truth? Did he actually only dump Zion's body, or had he done something to hurt her that he was now trying to hide? Was he telling the truth about where he put her body? Nothing he said could be trusted at this point, honestly, so there was nothing but doubt surrounding the entire situation. Even though police had an idea of where Zion's body was likely to be, they had to take time, a lot of time, to determine if they had the personnel and the resources to conduct a search of this landfill. A landfill search is one of the hardest searches. It's also extremely hazardous, so they had to weigh their options. And unfortunately, they did tell Sierra that a search of this landfill was unlikely to happen. And with this information, she got her family and other people in the community to help rally alongside her and convince the police that they at least had to try to find Zion, no matter how difficult it may be. As the summer began approaching, the decision to conduct a search of the landfill was finally made with a start date of May 31st. The search was named Operation Justice for Zion. A team of 40 personnel and 30 assisting staff members started to work as phase 1 of the search began. An area of 100 feet by 100 feet was the identified search area, and the first phase would call for 20 feet of debris to be removed from this area before anything else was done. Essentially, the top layer of this space would have to be cleared so that they could begin to search the deeper portions of the landfill. Remember, keep in mind, if Zion was actually placed in the dumpster when Jalen said she was expected to be up to 100 feet deep in the debris. Word began to spread about the search, and the Public Safety Department received about $300,000 in donations from the public and from businesses as well. Some of the contributors include DTE, the Detroit Lions, Little Caesars Pizza, National Coney Island Table for 20 Event Space, Detroit Athletic Club Foundation, the Home Depot, Blaze Contracting, and US Ecology. But I'm sure that there have been many other contributors, and there have also been, of course, individual people who have donated their money. Phase 1 of the search was expected to last for a couple of weeks, and police were pretty sure that they were working in the right area based on Waste Management's estimation of where that dumpster's trash would eventually end up in the landfill. But they weren't 100% sure until they actually made a breakthrough. What they found was a piece of mail, and this piece of mail had an address on it and a date on it that would place it in the same vicinity of where this dumpster was picked up around the same time frame. They knew that they had to stay in this vicinity if they had any chance of finding her. As far as I've been able to find via online resources, the search has continued. And the last update I actually found was an article published on August 17th, so a couple weeks ago. And this article stated that help was still needed for search efforts. The main way that you can help personally is through monetary donations for personnel and for equipment to go towards the search. And this is where I'll tell you exactly how you can help. It was said around this time a couple weeks ago that about $15,000 worth of donations are still needed in order to maintain the search. Donations can be made directly through the official Detroit Public Safety website, which I again will have linked for you down below. On the site, you will see a donate button on the main page. You can't miss it. And then when you click on the donate button, it'll take you to a second page where you can indicate how much you would like to donate and use a drop-down menu to specify that you want to donate to Justice for Zion. So that ensures that your donations are allocated appropriately. As of now, the search is expected to last until about mid-September, but police have come out and said that unfortunately they are coming up on that time where they may have to consider pulling the plug on the search. The likelihood of finding Zion unfortunately decreases as the days go on. And I'm assuming based on the summer heat, her body will be in an advanced state of decomposition. This part also may be very hard to listen to. When trash is picked up, as many of you know, it's put into the back of a trash truck and then it's compacted down. So if her body was in that dumpster, she would have been harmed pretty severely just during the transport process. But regardless of this, it is still imperative that her body is found. Number one, it can offer some sort of semblance of closure to her family. And number two, it can provide very important physical evidence for the investigation. It can illustrate exactly what happened to her that night. Did she actually just pass out, or was there something done to her that took her life before she was put in the dumpster? And many people believe that Jalen took her life that night. They believe that something happened between the two of them and he took her life and he disposed of her remains. And what would help secure a murder charge would be physical evidence. It would be her body. But hopefully he remains in custody for at least the next couple of years while police try to get more answers and build a stronger case against him. I'm assuming that's what they're doing, but of course there's always more information about the case that we don't have access to. That's just what I'm imagining is happening. And in the court hearings that I did watch for his sentencing for lying to police, he seemed remorseful, but you really don't know if they're crocodile tears. We have no idea. We really have no clue. It is, though, super suspicious that he wouldn't just call for help. He claims that because he was under the influence of marijuana, that distorted his perception, that he wasn't thinking clearly, and also he was worried about his family and all these things, and he just panicked. I just know that it is very strange that he wouldn't have called for help, that he wouldn't have even told anyone in the house what was going on. He said his children were sleeping upstairs. I don't know where his fiance was at the time, but you couldn't tell anyone, you couldn't ask anyone for help if she passed out. And if she was actually faintly breathing, she could have been saved. But again, that part is also alleged. But if you think back, just go all the way back to the fact that he didn't even pull in Zion's driveway the night that he picked her up. Could it be an accident? Possibly. But with everything else that happened in conjunction with the fact that he pulled in a neighbor's driveway, but if Jalen is lying, he will have absolutely no reason to come clean and tell the truth until physical evidence forces him to do so. Sierra has been very outspoken throughout this entire time, and you can feel the pain that she is going through. It is extremely difficult to watch her talk about Zion, but I do send my thoughts out to her as well as Zion's father, and also to the rest of the family as well.
She just turned 17 in November. She shares her location with me everywhere she goes. She asks if she can go wherever I would allow her to go. There are yeses and there are nos. because as a parent, you want to protect your babies. I have 6 kids. Zion is my oldest. All of my children look up to her. We were supposed to be planning her prom, her dress and colors. I'm still getting emails from the school right now for graduation pictures and just graduation. And now we can't do any of that because she asked me if she could go with Jalen. And I said yes, because I trust him. And I thought he would be responsible. But the fact is that it seems to me like he was hiding. He didn't pull up in my driveway. He pulled up in my neighbor's driveway. And he's pulled up in my driveway before. We've given each other a hug. I've spoken to him. He came that night and he picked my baby up by pulling into my neighbor's driveway and then parking in the front of my other neighbor's driveway. He called me. I didn't call him. He called me on the 5th when my baby didn't come home. He called me to say, I don't know why Zion would lie and put me into this. I haven't seen her in years. I haven't seen her in months. And I'm like, what? It wasn't too long ago that I saw you. And even knowing that my baby has been in contact with him, I kept going to his house. I just wanted him to tell me the truth. I stayed up for nights, for days, panicking and being so fearful. God, please don't let my baby be dead. Please, God, don't let my baby be just thrown away like she's nothing. These are the things that I prayed. I was fasting, my children not getting sleep, not eating, can't go to work. I'm a single parent. Everything that I do is for my children. Every ounce of money and time or whatever and energy is for them. It's to make sure that they're good. It's to make sure that they're surrounded by people that love them and protect them. And so, yes, Zion, you can go with your cousin who you have in your phone as Favo because he's your favorite on that side of the family. And to say, you panicked. Then why didn't you think about my baby? What if you were so high you didn't know she was alive? And you just threw her in a dumpster in the cold without a coat? And if that's the case, that means that my baby was crushed in the process of how trash is taken and picked up and placed in a landfill where she will never be found. I will never know. I will never know. I won't get to see my baby again. And as far as the many times that I went to his house during the search, Your Honor, he helped me post flyers of my baby in his neighborhood, on the corner of his house, the street that he lives. He told me, along with his mother, I would not lie to you. I know this has got to be really fearful for you. But I'm telling you, I have not seen her. I have not been around her. His mother said, my baby wouldn't lie to me. And so now everybody is suffering. My children are suffering, and they have to grow up knowing that their cousin did something this awful, and that their big sister isn't there anymore. And we have so many events and so many life changes that are happening now. My son came to his house and he didn't recognize him, but my son was so angry and he just knocked at the door and was like, "Is Zion here? Is Zion here?" You could have came and said something. You could have called 911. You could have called your mom. You could have called relatives that are all around. Somebody could have helped. Somebody could have known something. But it seems like more than just a panic. It seems like you did something or you gave something. Because why, if you love her, if she says that she loves you, and she always does, and you say that you love her, then why? How is it that someone that can love someone could just dispose of them in trash like she's nothing? And then come with me and post flyers and reach out to me and tell me, "I don't know. I know you're looking for Zion, but I don't know. I haven't seen her. I haven't spoke to her, and I don't know why she would use me." Why lie? This is something that can't be repaired. She cannot be replaced. This cannot be rectified. And we will never have closure. And as much as I love you guys, as much as I love that family, you have caused such distinction that it's hard to trust family at all. And now my babies are even more isolated. Because how can I trust family when family is one who did this? I will never forgive you, Jalen. And it may not matter, but I hope that your children grow up without you so that they can be better.
Thank you.
She deserves answers, and I hope that her remains will be found so that she can be laid to rest in peace. Be sure to let me know what you guys think about this in the comments section down below. This is still very recent and very raw, so be mindful of your thoughts in the comments as always. But that is where I am going to leave you guys. I hope you're having an awesome week, month. I hope that you're doing well, taking care of yourself, staying beautiful or handsome. If you made it this far, you know what I'm gonna say. You are loyal, you really are, and I appreciate you as always. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Love you guys. Peace.